A judge in Tunisia has handed down long prison sentences to a host of political opponents, the latest tightening of the screws by the regime of Kais Saied, who last October handily won re-election, while opponents such as former Parliament Speaker Rashid Ghannouchi languished in jail. The 83-year-old Ghannouchi sentenced Wednesday to an additional 22 years in prison for undermining state security. A US Congressman from South Carolina, among the most vocal in denouncing repression in Tunisia. Tunisia, the nation once hailed as the poster child of the Arab Spring reform movement it sparked back in 2011. Joe Wilson of South Carolina tweeting that the dictator in Tunisia has jailed 170 of his political opponents, canceled the Constitution and destroyed the Parliament, and yet continued to be funded by the Biden administration. This must end now, and there must be sanctions imposed. Let's cross to Washington and join Joe Wilson, who chairs the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Well, Francois, it's a great honor to be with you, and I just very much appreciate my family's French heritage. So you're speaking with a Franco-American who appreciates our first ally, France.
All right, and I know you're co-chair of the French Caucus. Maybe we'll talk about that more in a moment. In the House of Representatives.
Hear, hear. Hear,
hear. The repression by Kais Saied has been going on for a while. Why this call for sanctions now?
Well, sadly, of course, you identified it. In 2011, Tunisia was identified of the Arab Spring to bring freedom and liberty and opportunities for the people across North Africa. It was the poster child of what was good. And then, sadly, in 2019, Saied came to power, but in 2021, he actually began his dictatorship, eliminating the parliament, eliminating other offices. And the bottom line, it said that there's now one dictator who has taken what should be such a great country. I visited Tunis, and it was so exciting to see the progress that has been made, and what a great ally. They've been a non-NATO ally of the United States and France for years. But sadly, the dictatorship, and this week, with the incarceration of the former Prime Minister and Speaker of the Parliament, there's been a consolidation, and then equally bizarre, an outreach to the terrorist regime of Tehran, and to war criminal Putin, and to the Chinese Communist Party. And so, indeed, this dictatorship is being allied with the axis of dictators. The American people want the best for the people of Tunisia, and the best way to do that is have fair and free elections, which they did not have this year.
So you're calling for fair and free elections. Are you calling for a snap election? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, my view, it should be, yes, a snap election. The most recent elections, only 30% of the population participated, and then it's also quite revealing. The dictator received 90% of the vote. That is, whatever the problems are of democracy, that is a clear indication. Turnout and percentage of vote indicates a corrupt system. And so the bottom line, Tunisia, its location, it's so important in the Mediterranean, and such opportunities that are coming. And hey, the relationship the dictator had with Bashar Assad. Just a couple of months ago, I was really honored to be identified as an enemy of the Syrian dictatorship, and I take no credit, but now Assad's gone. I'm still in office, and so we have high hopes for the people of Syria. And I'm just see that across the Mediterranean, across North Africa, with the success of democracy and working with countries like Turkey and Saudi Arabia, there's a real opportunity for change, and we want peaceful change, but we want the best for the people of Tunisia.
What should sanctions look like?
Well, the sanctions, first of all, and I have the highest faith in President Donald Trump, and then we're so grateful that we now have a new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who will stand for freedom and democracy in the world. And so immediately, the sanctions would be ceasing of providing military aid and equipment to the dictatorship. And also, I just know that, hey, Donald Trump will stand up for freedom and democracy. The exact reverse of Biden. Biden sent Javelin missiles to the dictatorship in Tunisia. Well, actually, it was Donald Trump that sent Javelin missiles to the free government of Ukraine. And so we'll see that indeed Donald Trump, who sent American troops with French troops to serve in Poland. And so over and over again, Donald Trump stands for freedom and democracy. It can be misinterpreted, some of his statements, but the bottom line, he wants the best for our NATO allies. He wants the best for our allies of North Africa. We're so grateful for the success of Morocco. Over and over again, you can look and see Egypt, changes that are very positive. And then in the middle, you have Tunisia, which is going in reverse into a dictatorship and being part of an alliance of dictators who rule of gun, as opposed to democracies of rule of law.
Last summer, there was a lot of criticism because there were the president of the European Commission, the Italian prime minister, who's a good friend of Donald Trump, and the Dutch prime minister, who's now the NATO Secretary General, who went to Tunisia. Some said this was a bit of blackmail because it had to do with keeping migrants from crossing the Mediterranean. So how should we, on this side of the Atlantic, handle Kais Saied?
Well, we now can see it much more clearly, particularly sadly, with the incarceration of the Prime Minister and Speaker of the Parliament. There can be no misunderstanding that indeed Saied is a dictator who is oppressing the people of Tunisia, who should be one of the most dynamic countries of North Africa and can be one of the most dynamic countries with opportunities for young people, for its citizens, economic development, jobs. But again, this week is quite revealing that the dictatorship is a hopeless institution, just as Bashar Assad was a hopeless institution. And the hope is, and we see, Assad's gone. And now there's an opportunity for the people of Syria to develop into a free market society with opportunity for the people of Syria.
The most outspoken member on Capitol Hill when it comes to human rights on Tunisia had been Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. He's a Democrat. Are you working with him on something?
Yes. Absolutely. And you should be aware, on foreign policy, Republicans and Democrats substantially work together. Not always, but we have a bipartisan situation of House and Senate members. It's bicameral, bipartisan. We work together about 90% of the time once we leave the United States. And so I'll be working with Senator Murphy. I have in the past worked with Senator Cardin, who has been the co-chair of the Helsinki Commission, as I'm chair of the Helsinki Commission. And over again, we work together, and we're working to promote the whole concept, truly, of all of us and Donald Trump, of peace through strength. We want to restore the world that was really, to me, established by Ronald Reagan, and that is working with our NATO allies, with France, working worldwide with Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Australia. I can go around, and hey, we've picked up a new country, I think, that will be a great ally of America, called India. And so over and over again, we see progress around the world, and if we can also work for free elections in the Republic of Georgia. Sadly, the dictatorship there, which was installed by war criminal Putin, illegitimate elections in the Republic of Georgia need to be reversed, but there were good elections where Putin was rejected in Moldova, rejected in Romania, and then indeed Syria itself removing the Russian bases, Navy and air, in the country of Syria. They're step by step, but so much of it also relates to the determination of the people of Ukraine. They stood up to Putin. By doing that, that encouraged NATO to pick up membership of Sweden and Finland. It also provided for a hope for people around the world that a country being invaded, that is the Republic of Ukraine, can resist the dictatorship and the war criminal Putin and his oppression of the people of Russia. So over and over again, I'm just very optimistic, and I feel the same, that the people of Tunisia will be able to stand up peacefully and have fair and free elections.
And Congressman Wilson, at the outset of this conversation, you recalled happier times. We can post a picture of yourself like you did on Twitter of back in 2019. You went with a delegation. Let's talk carrots for a second and not just sticks here. You mentioned Syria. Now that Assad is gone,
yes,
and the Iranian influence,
yes,
is gone, the new masters of Damascus, Islamists, but they're working in a coalition. Are you in favor of lifting sanctions there?
I very much am, and I'll be meeting with many of the Syrian opposition leaders today here in Washington. And so there are changes that are coming about in the in France and in America. The Syrian American and Syrian Franco community, the diaspora, is so positive and so well educated and dedicated to helping Syria recover from the Assad dictatorship. Putting things in perspective, half the population, 12 million people of Syria, were dislocated by the Assad dictatorship. Once the dictator left, mass graves were determined that of tens of thousands of people on the same level as the mass graves that were discovered outside of Leningrad by the number of people who were killed by Hitler. And so over and over again, we see situations developing that I think could be positive, to work with the new government of Syria to encourage fair and free elections in Georgia and Tunisia itself.
And you're, again, the co-chair of the French Caucus in the House of Representatives. I know that South Carolina is home to lots of French corporations and businesses. My question to you is, because there's going to be some hard bargaining with the European Union, are you going to be whispering into Donald Trump's ear when it comes to going light on sanctioning the EU, if it comes to that, in trade wars?
Hey, it's not going to be a trade war. Hey, Donald Trump wants job creation in America, and we obviously support job creation in the EU. And so I'm just confident that this will be achieved. In the district I represent, I've got the largest Michelin plant in the world. But let's go back historically. I grew up in the holy city of Charleston, South Carolina, and we have the only functioning French Huguenot church in North America. And then putting that in perspective, that's my heritage, French Huguenot, and you should be aware that George Washington was a French Huguenot heritage. Okay, so let's go back. There's a real relationship, and I always like to remind everybody that in the House chamber itself, there are only two portraits, George Washington and the Marquis de Lafayette. And we're approaching next year the 250th anniversary of the Marquis de Lafayette coming to South Carolina to begin the French assistance which provided for the liberation and the independence of the American colonies. And so, again, over and over again, we need to look at the relationship that we have of France and America. It's been so mutually beneficial and always will be.
All right. I want to thank you so much for taking time out. Congressman Joe Wilson, thank you for being with us from Washington.
Well, Francois, thank you. And again, we cherish our relationship between the people of America and France. Thank you very much.
Thank you.